Number one question. Growing up, I placed a lot of importance on being fair, but recently I've noticed it can lead to frustration and anger. How can we hold fairness as a value in a skillful and sustainable way? I think that fairness and being fair is another one of these kind of wriggly weasel words that mean different things to different people, and often that we use rather carelessly without examining exactly what we mean by fairness. And so, it's something. There's a real seeing Mengong. So I don't think that there is like a universal value of fairness which can be applied in every circumstance, but fairness is a legitimate, I think, a valid concept within certain clearly defined parameters. So if you have a situation in which there are rules and that everybody signs up for the rules voluntarily, and that there is no special dispensation for, say, someone who is senior or elder or something in the group, then everyone is treated equally according to those rules. And then within that kind of environment, that kind of context, then fairness can be a valid concept, I think. But in most cases, I would say try to think about situations in other ways. I don't think fairness is always the most constructive or wisest way of looking at events and relationships. For example, if children say, it's not fair, he got this and I didn't. So from a child's point of view, brother and sister or siblings, they're exactly the same and they should be treated the same way, and particularly in regards to things that you want and the other sibling is being given. But from a parent or a teacher and a student, you're looking at an elder and a younger, perhaps a boy or a girl, different personalities, different challenges, and you're looking at it more perhaps like a doctor, and what is the best medicine for this person or this child. And so it'd be ridiculous if a child was to say, I want some of that medicine. You gave him all those pills this morning, and why didn't I get any? It's not fair. Well, yeah, because he's not well, and those are the pills he needs. And some people benefit from encouragement and praise, and some people get lost in it. So if a teacher or a parent gives different amounts of praise, for example. It's not being fair or being unfair, but you have certain principles, underlying principles and goals in mind. So when people get upset about fairness, they have certain values, certain concepts, certain ideas, which they tend to assume are universal, and then get angry with people who don't look at things in the same way. So that's maybe all a bit abstract, isn't it? But the point being that fairness is a word that you really need to look into, and what you really mean by fairness. When I was at school, I wrote a paper saying that society would be fairer if people who swept the streets and people who worked in coal mines and people who had dangerous and dirty jobs were given very high wages, and people whose jobs were inherently satisfying, like artists and doctors and sports people, that they had very low wages because they're already enjoying their careers. They don't need the extra money, whereas people with very difficult and dangerous jobs, they should be the people who are most compensated. And so it was more kind of just to get on the teacher's nerves, really, more than anything else. But, the idea of what's fair and what's not fair, it comes from certain values. And as I say, people have different values and so different ideas about what's fair. Whatever the case, anger, frustration, this is feedback to you that you are looking at the matter wrongly. There's like what Ajahn Chah would call wrong thinking in your mind. Because negative emotions like that cannot arise unless there is a fundamental misperception of the situation. So when there's anger, then we're looking at the root, the thinking that lies behind the anger. I'm not saying it's bad to be angry, but saying this anger is based upon certain kind of craving. For example, the desire that it should be like this, and unwillingness to accept when it is not how I want it to be or I think it should be. And so the opposition to something as being unwise or that should be changed, that's not a problem. But the anger and irritation doesn't make things better. It's a unwise grasp, unwise attention to the conflict or the difference of opinion. So when there's that anger and irritation, then look, is there that word? It shouldn't be like this. It should be like that, and all that kind of thinking is always going to cause you suffering, and it's not going to help alleviate matters which should be changed. Okay. Surrounded by ignorant and delusional people, so better take this as into the practice, or what extent better withdraw. Your thoughts on this are. Yeah, I think I got that. yeah, and people are people, and people behave badly and yeah, ignorant and delusional and so on. But we have to ground ourselves in the sense of commonality and our common humanity, that we are born, we get old, we get sick, we die. The things that it's a cliche, but it's a true. It's why it's cliche. Things that unite us are far more than the things that divide us. And the word ignorant and delusional, they're just two easy words. They're lazy words, aren't they? They're just kind of ways to put people down. And what does it mean to say ignorant? Yeah, I mean, everybody except for an arahant's ignorant. What do you mean by that? It's just a way of saying they're kind of bad people or stupid people. Delusional. Yeah, I mean, everyone, apart from arahants and enlightened, everyone's delusional to one degree or another. So, what is the particular kind of ignorance and delusion we're talking about here? And is it so those words are both kind of sloppy, lazy words, and they're also very imprecise, and they're based upon our perception, and maybe they think that you're ignorant and delusional as well, and deciding whether or not to say goodbye. So I think the criteria here, there are two criteria really. Firstly is that if those people who you have decided are ignorant and delusional are such to the extent that they not interested in keeping the 5 precepts, then that's a kind of bottom line. The 5 precepts is not like the standard as much as the bottom line. It's and if people have generally no interest in basic ethical standards, but are just caught up in their own desires and for enjoyment and stimulation and wealth and luxury and so on, then those people are better. You keep a distance from them when you can. So we're taking measurable criteria, people's actions and speech, rather than our subjective judgments of them as being ignorant and delusional. The other criteria, and again, something which is measurable and able to be experienced, is in our relationship with those people overall, do we see the unwholesome dhammas in our own mind increasing or decreasing, and wholesome dhammas increasing or decreasing? So this for me would be a better basis for some consideration, whether these people, mixing with these people, what effects it has on our own commitment to kindness and generosity and precepts and spiritual cultivation, and to what extent that they have basic ethical principles, and particularly in terms of 5 precepts. I am at a point of my practice and life where I'm able to take time off to ordain, at least temporarily. I want to do this to test the waters, to try living a monastic life, to deepen my practice and serve the monastics. What do you recommend I do next to do this in Thailand? Thank you. Good idea. Wow. Sadhu. I would suggest that that you travel around and visit a few monasteries in different parts of the country, spend a few days, different places, and just get some kind of idea of the kind of environment that you feel comfortable in, and one in which you could spend this period of ordination in the most beneficial way. So whether these are monasteries in the Ajahn tradition, and which are found in every part of the country, or in other traditions, but if there's no definite time by which you have to ordain and don't have that kind of time pressure, I would say take your time and go and spend time keeping 8 precepts in a few different monasteries, and then if you feel real connection with the monastery and faith in the teacher and feel that this is a place where you could really grow in the Dhamma, then that would be the next step. I have a strong pain in my knees from an accident when a car hit me. Yet I'm not an experienced meditator to easily focus on other parts of the body. Could you advise? So, yes, so without knowing too much about the sort of the long-term prognosis and whether this strong pain is going to ease in the future, or whether it's going to be part of your life, more or less, I would say that to meditate for shorter periods of time, and to change posture, to sit on the floor if you can sit on the floor, if you can't sit on a seat, stand. You can alternate sitting on a seat and standing, say 15 minutes sitting, 15 minutes standing, or if you can sit on the floor for a certain period of time, sit on the floor, sit on a seat, stand, sit on the floor again. So you can alternate postures. If you are able to walk, then do more walking than sitting meditation. Lying meditation is also an option and may well be a good one for you. So there are different ways that we can adapt the formal meditation postures to accommodate physical difficulties and illnesses and aches and pains. Generally speaking, when we have some particular ache, pain, physical problem, then it becomes part of our Dhamma practice because it becomes a focus of many defilements. So they become visible to us. We're able to look at them more clearly because of this illness. So this illness, this pain, does have, you can say, a silver lining, in that it will tend to bring up a lot of aversion, anxiety, fear, stress, self-pity. So all these negative emotions now display themselves. We can see how these mental states arise and pass away by focusing on the physical pain. And if we do that to the extent that there is a separation in which we are aware of the physical pain, the body as one thing, the vedana, the physical pain, another, and the emotional reactions to the physical pain as something else, then we make real progress in Dhamma. And one of the underlying features of human psychology, unenlightened human psychology, is a very deep suppressed, repressed fear of death. Although people will, if you say, right now, are you afraid of death? Not right now, not quite enjoying myself. But, if suddenly there was a snake sort of came in, then, oh yeah, actually I am. I prefer to live than be bitten by a snake. So that fear of death is very much bound up with fear of pain. And understanding pain and fear of pain and anxiety around pain has a knock-on effect. It does reduce underlying fear of death. So there are many advantages to contemplating physical pain. Having said that, without very strong samadhi, it's a stressful, difficult practice, not a pleasant practice. And so you should know your limitations and not feel now I've got this pain, this is my meditation from now on, looking at pain. Because it's depressing, basically. And you'll probably soon find a reason to meditate less and less and not to do it at all in the end. So it's a good thing to do every now and again, and incorporate it into your practice. That every now and again, every few days, or if you're sitting many sessions a day, have one session where you're going to just sit and look at the pain. But on a general basis, the most important thing that I've been saying this since yesterday is maintaining this interest and enthusiasm and enjoyment of this whole process and training and exploration and education. So look at pain and learn from pain, just to the extent that it's not undermining that interest and chanda for practice. Otherwise, when pain, just sit with it just for a while. So it's not the moment the pain comes on, you react to it and change your posture. Just bear with it just a while, just working with it, just not being averse to it, being friends with it, and then change your posture. As I said, from maybe sitting on the floor, sitting on a chair, standing, just can rotate those three postures and be able to sit for at least 45 minutes. Okay. I am getting over someone and can't seem to settle the mind at all. May I know how to manage grief with metta for myself? Yeah, any kind of separation, whether it's separation through death or the end of a relationship, friendship or a romantic relationship, it's a bit miserable, and it's to use a classic kind of analogy, it's like a wound that needs to heal, and you have to be patient with it. If you want to get rid of the grief, then you're actually feeding the grief. So this is the tax you pay. This is the karmic consequence of emotional attachment. At the end of that attachment, that relationship, there is this feeling of grief. But we don't have to repress it, push it away, reject it, and we don't want to indulge in it. But we simply say, yeah, this is it. Right now, there is this grief from the end of something. And it doesn't follow a timetable, so be patient. And if the mind starts to wander and going back to things that were said and done, or things that should have been said and done, or concocting imaginary conversations and that should have taken place and didn't, and the way the mind goes on, just recognizing that and just say, oh, this is Mara. Mara's come to visit. So it's normal, natural. And so that's a metta for yourself is just simply being a good friend to yourself. So being a good friend to yourself is not doing things and saying things and thinking things that cause yourself suffering. So it's not like an attitude to yourself, but it's a practical, moment by moment, wise, friendly way of dealing with your body, speech, and mind. So the first 1 to 2 nights. Okay, so this is someone who came before the retreat. I woke up 5 to 6 times and my brain starts thinking. This doesn't happen at home. My goodness, what does your brain do at home? That's really interesting. Seems the volume of meditation is winding up the mind. What's your explanation, please? Well, to begin with, simply the change of pace, the change of place, the change of times when you're getting up and going to bed, and so that's stressful, isn't it? That's going to have some effect, and there's some excitement and anticipation, and the ways that we're thinking about and framing this whole period of time that we are together. So I don't think that meditation is winding up your mind, but your attitude to meditation, or the hopes and fears and expectations and so on and so forth, which you're building upon this retreat, are more likely to be the cause. So before you go to bed, really calm body and mind, and if you wake up, then just meditate, and you fall asleep again, and it's all win-win situation. If you wake up, meditate, fall asleep, meditate's good, sleep's quite good, it's all good. Yeah, it'll be all right. I'm sure over the next day or two it'll change. Dhamma has helped me through the past year of difficulties. Thank you for having us back again to continue our practice. When I was eating earlier on, I noticed a sense of dread. Okay. Eat, poo, repeat. Feels like daily rebirth. aging and then death on a daily basis. How do I use this to develop wisdom and peace? Thank you. Yeah, I mean, this is, part of the practice that monastics apply themselves more to than lay practitioners, looking into food and, the fact that what seems very attractive on the plate, once it enters our body, it turns into something very unattractive immediately. And you don't have to wait until you go to the toilet. Simply something in your mouth, you chew it, and it's mixed with saliva, and then put it, if you don't mind, put it back onto a spoon or onto the. You say, "Would you like to eat that a second time?" Well, why not? So this other side of food and the gross side of food and toilets. In Japanese toilets, everything done for you. It's like it's almost like you're a passive consumer of the experience rather than, the producer of the main reason for being there. And the decor and the music and everything is basically telling you this isn't gross. This is. And but it is kind of gross and disgusting, and it is good just before you flush the toilet, just look at what's left your body. That was part of your body just a few seconds ago, and it's produced by the things that you put into your body. The food and delicious food, and these are not two completely separate, different things. They're one and the same process at different stages. So in the practice of letting go of sensual attachments, the Buddhist approach is not to take a kind of puritanical, that's evil, that's ugly, that's disgusting, and kind of stance, but it's saying, look at this more closely. What's going on here? Why is it that this food that's so delicious, it's in your mouth for a couple of seconds, and now it's something quite unattractive? What happens when the food passes through your body and comes out the other end? This is part of Dhamma practice, becoming more honest and willing to be aware of the physical body in all of its different aspects, not trying to focus only on the attractive aspects. And if you take off your clothes, and you just look at the clothes and the marks of sweat on the clothes. And then why do you have to wash your clothes? Because the clothes have come into contact with your body. That's the only difference between a sparkling clean set of clothes and a dirty set of clothes that need to be washed. They've spent some time with your body. And so these are just very simple observations, but keep bringing your mind back to this. This is the body. It's like this. It's there are aspects of it which are immediately attractive. There are aspects of it which are immediately unattractive. There are aspects of it which don't affect us emotionally either way. But in terms of developing a wiser, more balanced relationship to the physical body and the appetites and pleasures of the physical body, this is very helpful as a way of opening your eyes to things that generally you would try to avoid or overlook. Okay, dear Ajahn, for your consideration, please. Notwithstanding, and despite the fact that we are all bound to get ill, old, and to die, isn't life itself a beautiful gift? Why does Buddhism consider birth to be dukkha? Thank you. Okay, I don't really know what beautiful gift means. I mean, who gave it? Who gave us this gift? I mean, when you use the word gift, then there's somebody who's giving and someone who's receiving. So I'm not sure I would look at life like that. What Buddhism say? So I'm interested in language. Okay, so this is a bit of a kind of a linguistic thing. In language, in Thai, in English, we have this word is. Okay, like birth is dukkha. But in the Pali language, you don't have that verb. You just say birth dukkha. In Thai, it's in some cases it's very similar. So when Westerners learning Thai, they say one knee ben ron. So one knee is today, ron is hot. But it just sounds like sort of telegraphese, or it just sounds unnatural to say today hot in English. So you say today is hot. But in Thai, you don't have that. You don't have to have that is word in the middle of the phrase. So in Pali also, you say birth dukkha. So what does that mean? It's not like a one-on-one thing. Birth is dukkha. It means like everything about birth is dukkha. Just the way that you would say, like snow is white or something like this. It's not like a characteristic, a defining characteristic of and fixed characteristic of snow. And dukkha is the koan, the mysterious word that only arahants understand. And so we have all these words to translate it, and every translator has to, on the first page of a translation, they have to have a little footnote saying dukkha is not really covered by this word, but there's no real choice. And whether it's unsatisfactoriness or suffering or ill or many different ways of words which don't cover the whole meaning of dukkha. So birth, dukkha. Or where there is birth, there is dukkha, maybe we could say it like that. So that's not like a one-on-one thing. We're saying that birth includes, birth implies, birth is always accompanied by dukkha of one level or another, and dukkha itself, with different kinds of dukkha. So, when you use the word suffering or something, then it sounds very easy, like some kind of pessimistic dismissal of this wonderful world. But I think one phrase which I might paraphrase this is, life is not easy. Okay? That I think that's quite reasonable translation for, life is dukkha. Life's not easy. Well, why is it not easy? Why isn't life easier than it is? Well, because we get old, we get sick, we die, we're separated from the things we like, we're united with things we don't like, and so on and so forth. So life is not easy. And but the Buddha says life could be easier, and life could be easy because the The dukkha that we experience is not a gift or a curse from some spiritual ultimate being. It's not a punishment, but it is a function of a lack of understanding or wrong understanding of what this is right now. So, in fact, dukkha is probably the most optimistic of all religious teachings, rather than pessimistic, because it's one of four noble truths where the Buddha says this is not, like original sin, something you just have to put up with. It's not like inexorable karma that you have to endure, but it is something that you are creating moment by moment because you don't understand the way things are. And if you train your body, speech and mind using the Buddha's teachings, then you will stop creating that dukkha. Dukkha is something you do to yourself. Yeah. So when you're born, you do dukkha to yourself, and you don't have to do it. That's what the Buddha is saying. I think that's quite optimistic. Dear Ajahn, I struggle with the fourth precept, especially when the words come out before I can stop them. Please kindly help with a step-by-step guide on how I can improve. A step-by-step guide. Well, long term, you have to shift your default mode from talking to not talking. So for most people, their default is the moment somebody says something, they have to say something. That's their default. But through practice, mindfulness, meditation, you will observe that your default mode moves, and there's not that immediate pressure to respond, to say something, to express yourself. And so that's long term. Short term, I mentioned yesterday that the precepts are, each one of them are objects of mindfulness. Okay? So they're not commandments. There are trainings that you take upon yourself voluntarily. And with the fourth precept, if we take it in its most bared down, like stripped down form, not to lie, simply that, as something you bear in mind. So this is what mindfulness means, is not bearing something in mind, not forgetting something. It's right there, like in the front drawer of your mind. And so in any situation, then it's there. When you're in a conversation, at the back of your, or I said the front of your mind, but right there, present with you, is this commitment not to lie. And it provides the boundaries for your speech. I'm just trying to think of an analogy. Maybe it's like, say maybe you're going into a shopping mall, and you've got a certain budget. Let's say you've got cash. You're not using a credit card. And you can go shopping in this mall and buy things that you want, but you're constantly aware at the back of your mind, or with your mind, is how much money you've got. And maybe you'd like to buy this, but if you buy this, then you won't be able to buy that. So it's not, it's there constantly in your shopping. You're aware how much money you have in your pocket. And it gives you a boundary. And say I'll see if I can come up with a better analogy. But with in speech, and so taking this mindfulness of the commitment not to lie, that's your boundary. You may wish to say something that will make people like you, or prevent them disliking you, or whatever. But you are not going to cross that line of telling a lie. And because there is that kind of dedication, then all of these minor kinds of defilements that usually are very hard to trace, to keep track of in a conversation, where, as they say, you may be exaggerating something to make yourself more likable, or you're censoring some things because you don't want that person to lose any kind of respect or like for you, or you want something or you don't want something. Having that fixed point, or the other analogy is of a boundary of what you are willing to say, what the line that you will not cross consists of, it illuminates all the passing intentions that lie behind speech. So it is very much a mindfulness practice. So taking the precept, and it's not, oh, now I keep me for precept, but it has to be a moment by moment commitment. You have to give weight to it. This is what respect means. Respect means giving weight to something, giving significance to it, upholding it in your mind, giving it importance. And it's more important to you to keep your precept than to gain some advantage by breaking it. So yes, most simply is using that fourth precept as an object of mindfulness, something you're bearing in mind during conversation. During sitting meditation, I sometimes, being aware and continuity of the breathing, or continuing the breathing, but not so awake. Where does awake fit in? What is the feeling of awake? Well, the word Buddha literally means awake. So the Buddha is the awakened one. The idea that most we can characterize most consciousness, unenlightened consciousness, as analogous, similar to a dream in many ways. And the Buddha is someone who awakens from the dream. Generally, using it and the way that I use the word awake is influenced by that, and the word awake points the way towards that Buddhist knowing. But subjectively, how it feels, it points to the kind of clarity and vitality and freshness of knowing. Sometimes there is a knowing, but there's a kind of sluggishness to it, and stiffness to it, and those are aspects of the third precept. So it's not that you're completely, unaware of the breath, but there's no real vitality and clarity and kind of vividness. Yeah, another word would be vividness of the object. So one teacher, Tibetan teacher, I think, talking about this, and he said, imagine a child going to a zoo for the first time and saying, "Oh, a giraffe, that rhino," that kind of wide-eyed wakefulness. Yeah, it's like freshness, clarity. So try to, evoke that or recognize to what extent that is present or not present as you're being aware of the breath. It can also relate that to on initial meditation practice to quality of sampajanya, which is accompanies mindfulness. Okay, what's a good chant for newlyweds? Would Anumotana Yata be appropriate to chant by lay people to bless the young couple? I don't think that Yata would probably be best for lay people. There's the general kind of blessing chant which monks will chant on auspicious occasions is the Mahakaruniko. What do we call it? Jayanto. Yeah, it's the Jayanto chant. Jayanto Podiya Mule. Just when there is like sprinkling water or any kind of auspicious occasion or planting trees or when anything, that's the sort of the go-to chant, Jayanto. But if you want more than one short chant, then the Mangala chant, which we chanted last night, which is a recitation of all the auspicious qualities in a human life, it's a blessing, but it's a specific kind of recounting of all the blessings that we would wish the newlyweds to develop and cultivate in their lives. So the chant beginning as Sevana Chabalanang and the Jayanto chant would be my answer. What are your thoughts on divorce? What if my partner keeps making promises to do something, to change, but also keeps breaking them? The continuous feeling of disappointment somehow causing me to be not trusting my partner anymore. To what extent should we lose ourselves versus love the partner? So, marriage in a Buddhist culture is a different thing from marriage in Christian culture, or perhaps Islam is something else again. So, as you probably know, in Christian culture, then marriage is it's a religious ceremony originally. I mean, now you don't have to go to church and be married by a priest, but that was for most of the history of Christianity the case. And so you are making you're making promises to each other in a religious ceremony in the eyes of God. And for this reason, divorce has always been a huge problem in Christian countries, and illegal except under really dire circumstances, or unless you're very rich or you're a member of a royal family or something like that, where you have certain unfair dispensations. But but it's such an issue because it's a religious binding of two people and has religious significance. Whereas in Buddhism, it's not. It's just an agreement between two people. Yeah, we love each other. We want to we want to make some long-term commitment to each other. So although Buddhist marriages have taken on many of the sort of flavor and characteristics of Christian marriages, ultimately it's not the same thing, and it's not like bad karma. It's not like the Buddha's going to punish you, or is there some terrible thing that's going to happen to you if you divorce. So it's not a religious issue. But having made commitments to each other, then I think it's important to, and very few couples do this as far as I can make out, have certain agreements and certainly about what is a bottom line, and so like if you become a monk, for example, it's like getting married. When you have these, like parajika, you have these 4 rules. They say, you can make mistakes as a monk, but if you have sexual intercourse, or you steal, or you kill somebody, then that's it. You're no longer a monk. And if it's not quite the same thing, nevertheless, I think it's good for people becoming married to really understand what is important. So for many men who are unfaithful to their wives, and they just assume that that's kind of normal, and that it's the wife's duty to just put up with it. That's not necessarily how the wife feels, but often she's never made that clear, how important it would be to the continuance of their marriage if a husband was to be unfaithful. So a lot of things are left unsaid, which I think would be better spoken about before marriage. But in a marriage, there will be, and again, this is somewhat similar to monastic life, there'll be ups and downs, and times when monks want to leave and disrobe, and times when they're really happy with being a monk. And for this reason, my advice would always be to young aspirants that to make a commitment for like 5 years, if possible, so that you can just put that idea of leaving on the back burner for 5 years and just don't even consider it, so that you have experience of disappointment and discouragement and doubt and all these kinds of things without taking the easy way out. And after 5 years, you'll have been through enough to be sure whether or not you have the parami, or what's needed to make a life of this. And I think with marriage, it's good to have a certain length of time. There will be these periods of blissful periods and periods of disharmony and periods of mutual recrimination and anger and disappointment and so on. But that I think it's a good idea to have something like a parajika. Well, if this happens, that's it. But also generally commitment for a number of years before making any decision that this is a bad idea. And these days, because of a sort of consumer lifestyle, and that people looking on almost every aspect of their life, like transactions and consumption. And so, like, this is a bad choice, just stop and get something else, get something better. And I don't think that's a very healthy attitude. So in the case of divorce, if a couple have been through ups and downs over a number of years, then 5 years or maybe 10 years, then you have a pretty good idea of how things are going to pan out over the next 10 years. If someone has consistently made promises to change, and then as soon as things relax a little bit, go back to their old ways, and that's been happening again and again, not just once and twice, but it's a recurrent pattern, or someone's aggressive and behaves badly in various ways again and again and again over a period of years, and there's really extremely unlikely that they're going to change. Then for me, I think divorce seems quite a reasonable option. There are other factors, of course, whether or not there are children and other financial considerations, and and usually these are the things that have kept women in unhappy marriages more than love, just practical considerations or fear for the future of their children. But I think that you love somebody, and it doesn't mean that you can communicate with them well. It doesn't mean that you're always going to agree with them, and there's going to be I'm sure you all know that it's a challenge, and marriage is not easy. So if I say marriage is suffering, you say, "Oh, Ajahn, that's really tough." So I'll say marriage is not easy. But after a number of years, then, as I say, if there are these like recurrent, chronic problems and patterns again and again and again, and there's no genuine effort on the other side to do something about that, then it may well be a good option. But then it really depends. I'm not making a general statement here, but it's not like bad thing as such in the way that it would be considered so in most Christian cultures, for example. Can monastics attend a wedding? I was once told no, but I see a lot of weddings attended by monks on YouTube. Okay. Well, this kind of continues from the last question in that a marriage is not a religious ceremony. So monks are not priests who conduct weddings. But Buddhist families will often invite monks to come to chant as a blessing, or perhaps for a senior monk to give some advice to the newly married couple. So it becomes incorporated into the wedding proceeding. So it's not part of the legal tying of the knot or the signing of the papers or whatever. But it's a way of honoring the Buddhist faith and the Buddhist refuge of the family, and as I say, to have monks come to offer blessings and teachings is considered highly auspicious. But monks are not, as I say, conducting marriages. And if it's a marriage where there's a lot of alcohol, then monks just sort of come in and go out again. You shouldn't be hanging around while people are drinking alcohol. Dear Ajahn, to cultivate metta, I often meditate with intention, may I abide in well-being at base. At ease, okay, sorry. start again. May I abide in well-being, at ease, and also to all beings. To be honest, these feel only as words. What would be your advice to include in my practice to complement? Yeah, I have the same feeling. Those may I be well, may I be happy. They seem kind of bland statements to me. I've never really found them very, very useful. I think that to be, as in many areas of life, to be precise and specific is a lot more helpful. For example, may I know the joy of generosity. May I dwell in the joy of generosity. May I dwell in the happiness and peace of someone whose precepts are pure. May I dwell in the happiness of a mind free from anger and ill will and full of kindness for others. So taking things that are meaningful to you, things that are goals, spiritual goals in your life, and then make them the basis of the metta. So you aspire to be kind. May I dwell in kindness. May I know the joy of kindness in my heart, unbounded kindness in my heart. May the kindness in my heart never be, never disappear. May I spread and include all beings. So I think this for me is more meaningful rather than saying may all beings be well. It's kind of, for me it's not very, very profound. But if you say, may I always, in every circumstances, dwell in the kindness for all beings, for me that's a lot more powerful. So making it more subjective and meaning more specific and more meaningful. Okay, I think that's enough for today.
An Dhammayang Ovathakatha Sathu Karang Tathamase Sathu 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 Anumodhami